Well, here we are today at Asprey Falls, and it's fairly obvious why the fishery takes the name of Asprey Falls. When you look in the background, there's a marvellous piece of countryside, the Shropshire countryside, absolutely fabulous. We've got Moor Brook that falls about 20 feet, then runs along this bridge, and actually is the life source of Asprey Falls fisheries. Dave Ollihead, the owner, he takes water from the brook, and that's what supplies the oxygen and the rich water that these big trout thrive and live in. Without further ado, let's go over to the trout fishery and let's see if we can catch one of Asprey Falls' monster trout. Come with me. This is one of the most important parts of the day. So many people actually get onto a fishery, just start fishing, and they don't know anything about the fishery. If you want to know anything about the fishery, ask the owner or the fishery manager. He lives here. He knows where the fish are. He knows what condition they're in, what they're doing at any time of the day. I'm going to talk to David for 5 minutes and find out where the fish are. Hey, David.
Yeah, good to see you, mate.
Lovely, lovely. Beautiful October day, isn't it?
Yeah, a cracker, isn't it? Eh?
Fantastic. Leaves coming off, looking good.
Couldn't have picked a better day, mate.
No.
Really
Okay,
good.
David, let's talk about the whole setup here, because it's a little bit more, to say the least, than just a trout.
That's right.
A trout lake,
That's
or a
right.
monster trout lake. We've got the U-shaped lake, which I've fished many, many times, and sort of had some fabulous days here, double-figured brownies and 20-pound rainbows. Have some fabulous days. What is this setup, David? We've got sort of all sorts of things here, haven't we?
Yeah, well, we're a fish farm, really, Des. You know, we've got stew ponds on the right, and we've got stew ponds on the left-hand side there. Obviously, we rear on a lot of fish. We rear on our own fish here. At the end of the day, we know mostly for our big fish, and the lake here, obviously, a lot of people come and fish here from all over Europe. As you know, you hold the record on the lake, 23:11.
Yeah. I always say to people, always have a word with the fishery owner. You live here.
Yeah.
You see them in the morning, evening, you know, how they're reacting in different times of the day. It's morning now. Where would you suggest I go, David?
Well, Des, I think it's the most important point you bring up there, and I think most anglers do tend to get onto the water. They want to get on as fast as they can. I mean, at the moment, you know, there's a few leaves blowing on the water, a few daddies about even, but I mean, I'd say actually the fish are deeper. There's a fry in the water, and I'd use a fry pattern. And you've got to know, you know, you've got to approach the water with a little bit of knowledge, because otherwise it can be a total waste of time. But if anglers do talk to the people who are on the water all the time, if not the manager, perhaps someone who fishes the water regularly, they'll get that little bit of advice that will enable them to catch a fish.
Do you think they'll be enclosed? I mean, what we've got here is we've got sort of fairly deep lake.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
The thing that I'd like to get over here, it's okay, we have got shallows over the far side, but on most waters in this country, you're fishing blind. There are fisheries that you can stalk fish, but on most fisheries, you're fishing blind, and you need to know about the fish, probably more than actually stalking.
That's right.
Now, I mean, I'm going to try walking along the lake. There's no one along there, and I'm going to fish very close. I mean, I've had some tremendous fish in close up the far end and down this side, especially by this tree.
Yeah, well, that tree there is a super place to fish. I mean, it's a deep hole under there. First landing stage about 8 to 9 feet deep, and fish do lie under there. On the opposite bank, there's a little pipe bringing water into the pool, and again, that's a good place to fish. As the pool goes down, it gets deeper down to sort of from 8 foot at one end down to about 22 foot at the other. And there are various lies, there are various points where, you know, again, the manager will point these out to you and enable you to sort of have at least a good chance of catching a double-figure fish.
Well, I'm going to start by fishing in close, and I'm going to walk around the length of the lake and just see what I can catch in close. I think too many people actually start the day whacking as far as they can, scare those fish that are in close, and they actually spook them out. I'm going to walk across and probably only fish a few feet away from the lake and see what I can get.
Yeah, well,
I've talked enough, man. I'm going to catch a fish.
On your way, on your way.
I've already got my rod set up. If you notice, I'm using a carp quiver, and I don't know why more trout anglers don't do that. I've actually got the rod set up. All I need to do is push them together and I'm fishing. Notice the net. There's some big fish in here, so you need a big net. Let's creep down into the swim. Nice and quiet. Okay, they are stocked fish, and some people say they're stupid fish, but believe me, if you want to catch one of these, your chances are much, much better if you take it nice and quiet. Now, what I'm going to do I'm going to set my gear up here and I'm going to fish. There's about 9 foot of water under that tree and I'm going to fish right under there, intermediate line, and straight away at this time of the morning, coming down here, first cast, nobody else has been on the water, you can get the biggest fish of the day at this time. First cast, undisturbed water, those fish are ready to be caught. Let's go and cast a line out. Let's see what we can do. I'm going to fish a very short line first of all, a very short line, right by that tree. There you go. Let it sink. Some big fish under there, very big fish. Let that line sink. Now work it back. There you go. Figure of 8. This is the danger point on a very big fish, if it takes right near the surface on a short line. Airplanes come to see me. Out by that tree again. Come on, you devils. Let it sink. And retrieve. Nice and slow figure of 8. I just had a little knock there. I think that's a take. Yes! Yes! Is that a big fish? Oh, no it isn't. No it isn't. Oh dear. God, I thought that was that was a classic. Oh, look at this. Oh, bit overgunned, heavy line, and God knows what the... Look at this. Oh, no. Okay, so they're not all doubles in Asprey, but still good fun. Still good fun. Disturb the swim, to say the least. But sometimes fish of this size can actually... There you go. 8-pound line. I could virtually cast this fish out on this. Come on, beauty. Let's get my net. Let's get my net. Now this net is a bit overgone for this fish. Come on, my beauty, come on. Come on, come on. Lovely fish. Beautiful fish, look at that. Yes. Yeah, it's a nice fish, about 3 pound. Hopefully we're going to get one 5 times that big. 6 times, 7 times. Nice short cast to that tree. Nice and careful. Lovely, right by the side of the tree. Let it sink. Come on, my beauties. That line sink. And then work it back. A nice slow figure of 8 retrieve. I find that a much better retrieve for big fish, a much better retrieve. A lot of people thrash back, and it does catch a lot of fish, and yes, it does catch big fish as well, but I found over a number of waters that I've taken doubles from, and especially here in Pennine that I've fished a great deal, this sort of water responds to a very, very slow retrieve. A puffy lure with lots of marabou, just working it, making that marabou puff, puff, puff. Nice and slow, puff, puff, there you go. And again. And again. Sink that line. Nice, slow retrieve. Occasionally you can give it a jerk like that. Just changing that lure. The movement of that lure. I think in a lot of cases, that retrieve and what you do with the lure or what you do with the fly is actually more important in a lot of cases than actually what you've got on the end of your line. So many people think that's the most important thing, when actually the retrieve is very, very important. A catching retrieve, I call it. Yes! Caught! Oh, that was a solid take. Oof. Yes. I tell you what, that could be an half decent fish, that. I mean, it's a monster, but it's sort of a decent fish. Oh, yeah, come on. Come on, girl. Oh, right by that tree. Look at that, it's working the edges. Tell you what, this might be. Oh, look at it just running along. This is a good fish. I didn't think it was, but I tell you what, this is a decent fish. Look at it just running. Oh, oh dear. Oh dear. This is a right. My God, look at the size of this thing. Oh, crikey. Oh. Oh my God, that's a decent fish, that is. I thought that was only a small fish, and that's a proper Asprey Falls fish. God, just swum towards me. God. I'd have bet any money, that was about, God, look at this, look at this. Oh, look at the back on him. God, blimey, I'd have bet you any money that was about £3, £4, like the other one. God. And they say they don't fight. Oh my God. That is just taking me where it wants, unfortunately. Ooh. Crikey. This is a big, big fish. This is a good fish, this. I bet this is, well, I don't know. It looks 15 plus to me. Come on, girl. Ooh, look at the size of that. Look at the size of that. Come on, girl, come on to daddy. Fought itself out. Is it in? Come on. Oh, God, got ya. Oh, look at the size of that. So much for being £3 or £4. Look at the size. Look at the short depth of it. Oh, now we need to that's a proper Asprey fish. That is a proper Asprey fish. Look at it. Oh dear. Oh my God, look at this. Oh, when the hooks come out. Oh, the hooks come out now. Oh, look at this. What a fish. Oh my God, let's weigh that up. Oh, now then we can safely say that's a double. Put his nose in. That is one hell of a fish, isn't it? You know, I thought that was about £4. Oh, let's have a look. That's an heavy fish. Come on. Oh, what's that? 16. Oh, God blimey. £17 exactly. £17 exactly. What a fish. Oh, what a fish. Oh, I knew we'd have a good fish, but crikey, I didn't think we'd have one this big. I've got to be honest. Well done, Davey, lad. Well done, Davey. Thank you for another absolutely belting Asprey fish. Look at that. Look at that for a fish. Now, is that a rainbow trout? That's what we've come for. Might have a few of them today. Oh, look at the size of it. Look at the thickness of it. Look at that for a fish. Oh, there you go. Oh, what a fish. Oh, what a fish.
Well, here we are at this beautiful little lake. It's taken me 2 hours to find it, yet just one cast to produce this beautiful rainbow trout of approximately 2 pounds, taken on a very imitative dullback nymph. Here we go now, we're off to go and try and catch a second fish, maybe on the second cast, maybe not. We'll have to see how we get on. So here we go, onto the lake. I'm fishing with a midge-tip line, using 3 imitative nymph patterns. Now you may want to ask why I chose to fish 3 nymphs. Well, the lake is quite small, approximately 3 acres, and imitative patterns will always take the fish. They're very, very easily scared by big lures that are thrown out by other anglers. So I've gone for a natural approach, and let's see if it brings some just rewards. Here we are, tangled around the edge. Okay, that fish has been covered quite well, and I'm expecting it might take. When your flies hit the water, they make a sudden little plop with the weight of the hook. And often anglers chuck the line out and they'll sit and wait and they'll have a look around, see what's happening, and that's when the line shoots away. The fish has heard that little plop and it's reacted to it to see what it is. Seeing this lovely little morsel that you're offering it, and it's grabbed it and it's pulled it, and you've not been ready. So as soon as those flies hit the water, you will get 50% of your takes when nymph fishing, when the fish are high in the surface, within 2 or 3 seconds of those flies landing on the water. So a little plop just attracts them towards you. Just as I thought the fish were beginning to change their habits, a fish has grabbed what looks like the hare's ear on the top dropper again. This is the second fish to take this fly. It's taking the top dropper very, very close to the surface as the clouds come over. It looks like a good fish, and he's coming in quite quickly. Okay, you notice how I've got the rod nice and high. Allow that fish to fight against that carbon. A lot of people might put the rod too low like that. You're in direct contact with the fish, and this is how you get snapped off. The fly line with the leader line breaking. This is a very good fish. Okay, I'm going to bring this fish to the net. Notice how I'm in control. I'm staying in control of that fish. I'm guiding that fish exactly where I want it to go. If I want it to come left, I'll bring my rod round to the left like that. If I want it near the surface, I'll bring my rod high. I'm keeping that rod a nice big arc so the fish is fighting against that rod, weakening itself as the fight continues. Okay, it's quite a lively fish, this one. I'll give him a bit of stick just to see how he reacts. He looks a good 3 pound mark, I'd say. Very, very silver. Okay, notice I'm steering the fish round to where I want him to come, but he ain't having it, bless him. He knows what's coming. A nice big net. Yeah, it's a cracking fish. Beautiful fish. Okay, keep low. Hey, bad angling, Mr. Barr, bad angling. Okay, he's gone into the reeds. What not to do. Okay, get the fish's head on the surface, roll your rod back over your head and guide him into the net, like so. And here we have another smashing, cracking rainbow trout. Very, very important when you take up this fly fishing game is to think about your day's fishing ahead. Plan how you plan to catch your trout for the table. Think about what you're doing. Every single cast I'm chucking out, I'm analysing every single cast. Which fly did that fish just take? Did it take it early in the retrieve? Did it take it late in the retrieve? Did it take it pulled fast, pulled slow? What angle was the sun at? Every single fish I catch is analysed. If I'm not catching, I'm thinking, why am I catching? Am I fishing too shallow? Am I fishing too deep? Are my flies the wrong colour? Are they the wrong size? Are they going too deep, too shallow? Each little thing has just been questioned in my mind all the time. Maybe it's got something to do with my job, working as a project manager and an analyst, just constantly analysing data all the time. Fish on again. Here we are. It's taking the same one again. That hare's ear really is proving deadly this morning. And again, the reason I put on the hare's ear, there's a bit of thought behind that. When I tied it on, these fish, they could be fairly fresh to the lake. They've been fed on these brown pellets. And of course the hare's ear is brown, very imitative of a pellet. Bit sneaky, but again, a thinking angler makes me put on that hare's ear. Okay, I've left my net up the bank. I'm going to have to carefully play this fish and retrieve my net. Let it take some slack line. Here we are with the net. This is a bit of a palaver, but it's all part of the fun. Okay, keep that line tight all the time on that fish. Any slack line might allow that hook just to spring away. This occasion, I seem to have got away with it. Bit of dancing over the line. Take up line dancing. This literally is line dancing as you jump over the line like that. Really is the real McCoy. Okay, keep that rod nice and high. Allow that fish to fight that carbon. You should always be the winner with this fish. So 8.5 pound line, a 2 pound fish, a nice 7 weight rod, beautiful rod from the Hardy Greys range, the Platinum X, really does quality rod. It beats the fish very, very quickly. Okay, as soon as that fish gets his head up on the surface, bring that rod high over your shoulder to bring that fish to the net. This is where most fish tend to get lost, is at this final part. Skim him to the net, head over, lift. Very, very easy, very effective way to land those fish. Again, another beautiful trout. The sun is now getting higher and higher in the air, and there's fewer and fewer fish starting to rise. So this is what they call the dog's day. It slowly becomes harder as that sun rises, becomes more predominant, penetrates the water a lot more easier from its direct angle straight into the water. We'll often put the fish down, so maybe change the point fly to a slightly heavier nymph just to take it down, that's a few inches extra. Those fish will carry on feeding, they'll just follow that food down a little bit deeper into the water. Okay, that's been nothing now for about 10 minutes, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my flies to hand, maybe consider changing them, and just rest my swim for 10-15 minutes, give that water time to recuperate, and I say allow a few more fish just to swim into my area of water. Let's have a look what flies we can maybe put on here now. Okay, little red-head dialback's not taken a fish for a while, so unfortunately he has been subbed to the bench. No good fly, you're relegated. Okay, we're going to the little box of goodies, sometimes called a Christmas tree decoration box, by these multiple colours you can see there. Again, these do work on the bigger reservoirs, maybe not so much on these smaller ones because they're more natural fed fish. So you're looking for something a little bit more imitative, like these very drab, dark, greeny, brown patterns on this side. I'm now going to fish a little bit deep. I'm going to try one of my little black buzzard patterns. This is a natural nymph which is actually emerging through the surfaces now. I've seen the adults flying around, so I know these nymphs are actually below the surface. I'm going to try and imitate those naturals now. Very, very effective pattern, caught me many a fish, this one. So let's tie this one on. I've left a bit of fluorocarbon on the end there. Don't do that at home, bite the line with your teeth. Always use your scissors. Okay, the knot, simply thread the line through the hook, through the eye of the hook. Very, very easy knot, just take the line round once, twice, 3, 4 times, and the most important thing, add a bit of saliva to the line there, because if you don't, when you pull it tight, it actually burns and causes a bit of friction which will weaken the fluorocarbon and you're more than likely to get broken off. Get hold of the fly, pull that knot really tight, and make sure your line is sitting nice and straight to the nymph, and cut off the excess lead material you got there. I always leave fractions of a millimetre. If you left that like this piece of lead here would actually push against the water and it would cause a nymph to twist through the surfaces. That is just totally ineffective. Trim it right down, but not too short, because if you haven't pulled that knot tight enough, that knot may slip a few millimetres and that fish will be lost, as well as your fly. Okay, the water's now been rested sufficiently. Let's go and try this new pattern and fish the depths a little bit deeper, just to see. Finally got my net in the right place, ready to reach for this next fish. The water's now been rested for about 10-15 minutes. I've changed to a slightly heavier nymph on the point. I'm going to fish a little bit deeper to cover the angles and cover the depths a little bit more, as the fish seem to have gone down as that sun's climbed through the sky. So here we go with the first cast with a change of flies. Let's see if we can strike gold. A fish has actually just rose right in front of me. It's not taken this time. Looked a better quality fish. The reel I'm using today is just a large arbor reel. The reason I use a large arbor is like a large disc. It stops the line from coiling. It keeps nice big wide loops on the line. But it's not important to spend hundreds of pounds on reels. At the end of the day, it holds your line. Maybe use it twice a day. I pull my line off at the start of the day, and when I've caught my lovely trout, I reel it back on the reel. Two uses in a day. I can't see the point in spending hundreds of pounds on some of these. They are very, very nice reels and they do look very pretty, but being a pretty boy myself, I'm not always having the pretty kit. If it does the job, then that's good enough. You can get good large arbor reels for around about 40-50 pounds. They're not expensive, and those often come with spare spools. You've got the Greys GRX, which is a very, very common and very cheap but very effective reel. On lines, I'm actually using a midge tip line today. It's got 3 foot of little clear tip at the end which sinks the flies a little bit deeper. Floaters, plenty of floaters on the market. The Shakespeare Worcestershire line has got to be one of the best presentation lines in the market. Really do sit true on the water, nice and straight, which is absolutely critical for nymph fishing. You've got a nice straight line which gives you direct contact with those fish when they take your line. Every little coil that's in your line, if a fish takes out, that coil has got to straighten out before you feel that contact. So a nice straight floating line, and so the Shakespeare Worcestershire or the Shakespeare ranges really are excellent floating lines. They really are good. Okay, this little black fly is not done the damage. I'm going to keep the hairs here on the top dropper. That's taken several fish now. The crunch in the middle has taken a couple, or taken one at least, and missed one. So that will stay on the cast. But I'm going to change the little black nymph on the point, which had his game, had his chance, had his last 5 minutes. He's now about to be substituted. I'm going to try something different, maybe a little damsel nymph, which is more imitative. And I have left my fly box just over here. Okay, let's try something a bit more imitative now. I'm going to maybe try a little damsel nymph, which is, I've seen the blue adults flying around, the blue dragonflies as people often refer to them as. I'm now going to try this small little double hook damsel. Again, it's non-scary, it's not bright and ugly. It should draw the trout in, and again it'll hit the water with quite a plop, so I'm anticipating takes quite quickly as that fly hits the surface. Snip away the line. From the top of the eye, through the eye from the top. 4 turns. Add a bit of moisture. Stop that friction. Through the small loop you just created. And pull very tight. Snip away your excess line. And we're ready to go. Now let's see what my damsel in distress can do. I shall be in distress if the damsel don't work. Here's one I prepared earlier. You can see my lovely bright handle of my net here. That helps people spot me around the lake. A little tip, especially with clothing, is never wear bright clothing when you go fishing, because as much as you can see those trout, I guarantee you they can also see you. And try and get a good bit of sky, avoid the skyline behind you. Got some lovely trees there, sort of blocking me from the skyline, so the trout shouldn't be able to see any silhouette. They'll just see this rather ugly fisherman casting at them. Okay, that looks good. That looks good. Oh, we have a couple of ducks there on my line. Maybe catch a little duck or two. It's a good job it's Saturday, otherwise it would be roast duck for Sunday. Oh, and I've just missed one. I've just missed a fish. First cast with that new damsel nymph. Almost proved fatal. The fish seem to have moved out quite a bit. All the fish I've caught have come at long range, so once I've brought the line in there's no point in me fishing it back really slowly. It's almost redundant water. So what I'll do is I'll go and put it right back out into that zone where the fish tend to be sitting, which is right the way out. Out there. Okay, wait for that line to take. That's quite a gentle take, so I'm going to keep the rod tip right next to the surface so I'm in direct contact. If it's an aggressive take, I've got to be careful not to strike, because it could snap my line. Yes, it's took it. Oh yes. Lovely fish. Keep that rod high again. Always come to the net quite quick, this one. Here he goes, he's woke up. Normally when you hook a trout, you've got 7 or 8 seconds to get it to the net before it kind of realises it's been hooked. Now I've got a battle on my hands. Me versus the fish. And it's normally a fair battle. Oh, he's big. Head up, rod right over your shoulder, swing him over the net. Straight in. Beautiful, another lovely trout, about 2.5 pounds. Beautiful.
And this is a rainbow trout. Let's have a look at the markings on it. Typical rainbow trout, nice purple sheen, freckles rather than spots. Hopefully we'll see a brown trout later on, and brown trout have got round spots rather than freckles, and a golden flank. But this is a beautiful condition of rainbow. If you ever need to have a look at your rainbow, pick it up and just hold him out, and that's how you take a picture. And that is what fly fishing is all about, catching these. What a wonderful start. Now, one of the most important stages, it's particularly of your first fish, is to spoon it out. And that's just a term we give to really see what the fish has been feeding on. And the term comes from the implement we use, which is a marrow spoon. And it's in the end of my piece. So you screw that together, and really you can expect anything in the fish's stomach. So you're not too sure quite what the fish are feeding on. And we have a look. And the way to spoon a fish is you turn the fish round and lift the fish slightly off the ground, hold it sideways on, and you're going to insert the spoon right down the fish's mouth. Remember which way up the spoon is, because it's very easy to pull the spoon out upside down. And you push it right in, you give a good old twist round and really scrape back along the walls of its stomach to see what he's been eating. And nothing in that one. Try again, try a bit deeper. Now if there's nothing in it, that shows, yes, he's not been feeding at all, this fish. There's virtually nothing in here at all. And sometimes you're going to find that the fish have been eating bugs like snails and spiders, various buzzers, various types of insects, and that's what you're looking for. Not necessarily just to see what they've been feeding on, but to see what type of depth the fish are at, whether they're feeding on adult flies on the surface, or pupa, which could be mid-water, or larva, which could be right at the bottom. So it's always worth spooning your fish and seeing what the fish has been feeding on. This one hasn't been feeding, so there's no point in changing the fly for that purpose. And what you'll need to do is keep the fish fresh. And when the sun's out like this and it's a nice warm day, the fish will dry out in the sunshine. So we put them into a bass bag, and you just put them into that bass bag, and then again, to keep the fish fresh, you need to insert that into the lake, and the water will seep through the bass bag and keep the fish fresh. And just a little stone on top of the bass stops it floating away. And that's how we get that fresh. Now I think we'll change the nymph. The nymph was very, very successful, and it shows you how easy it is to catch fish on the nymph. But now we're going to try a dry fly. There's plenty of fish rising on the lake. In fact, the fish haven't stopped rising, and you cannot turn down an opportunity like that. When fish are coming up to the surface, you have to really try a dry fly. So we'll have the nymph off, and one of the most useful techniques when dry fly fishing is what we call the suspended buzzer, and that's the type of dry fly I'm going to start off with. So we'll take the nymph off, and this is the box of dries, and as you can see they range in a variety of colours. I'll stick the nymph in there for the time being. They range in a variety of colours and sizes, and you've got to really think of what the fish are feeding on, and I think the fish are going to be feeding on something like this little chap. This is an elk hair emerger. It's black. Black is the predominant colour of stillwater fish. They feed on black more than anything else. So we're going to tie a black fly on to start with, using the turtle knot as before. And you've got a couple of important rules to remember with dry fly fishing. Very, very important rule is that when the fish come up to take your dry fly, they do so hoping that it's a natural, or looking to be a natural. And there's no way in the world your fly will look to be natural if the leader's floating. So the very, very important rule, and this is where most beginners unfortunately go wrong, is that you coat the leader in a sinking compound to make it sink. Now first of all, the dry fly must float, so the dry fly is dunked into this chemical. This is just a waterproofing agent on the fly, keeps the fly dry and keeps it floating upright. And then, as I say, I think one of the most important tips of dry fly fishing is that we coat the leader in this sinking compound. It's easily done and commonly done with the wet fly, but very few anglers use this stuff on the dry fly, and it's perhaps more important with the dry than anything else. And as before, we wet the leader, about 3 foot of it. Apply this sinking compound. It's just a degreasing agent really. The only reason the leader floats is because the leader is greasy. So we put on a degreaser and then wash it off. And that's the dry setup. And the technique, well, we'll show you the technique. But first I think we shall go over to the corner there. There's a few fish rising in that corner and we'll give it a go. Let's see how successful the dry fly is. Right, here we are. As before, get your net ready, put it down by the side, ready for action. You don't want to be searching for your net when you've got a fish on. With the dry fly, having dunked it in that floatant, the feathers are still wet, obviously the floatants are liquid, so you must dry the fly off with just some short, sharp casting, drying off the feathers. Like this, about 10 or 12 casts. And then pop the fly down, check it floats, and cast it out. And remember, the dry fly is floating. It's used to good effect when you cover rising fish. So really the most important rule with a dry fly fisherman is you aim for a trout. We'll put it out there first. There's nothing rising particularly. And you leave it there. And what you're trying to do with a dry fly, it's trying to represent a natural. So if you think of how a natural fly is going to be moving on the water, it's just going to blow around in the wind. And to that effect, you keep the line with a little bit of slack in it. You see, I haven't retrieved all the slack in the line. I keep a little bit of slack. The fly is going to drift around as per the wind. And in fact, here we don't have any wind, so the fly is just going to sit there, which makes the dry fly a little bit awkward. But the most important thing is observation. Whilst you look at your dry, you keep your eye on the water and see if we can see a fish rise. And remember what I was saying earlier on, the fish swim upwind. So when you see a fish rise, just put your fly upwind of the fish and he should come onto it. And there's one over there. We'll just put the fly in that direction. It's possibly out of range, but we'll put one in that direction in case he's swimming this way. And the fly is usually left static. You don't normally work your dry fly through the water, though if you get any interest in the fly and the fish perhaps refuse it, there's another fish a bit further over there. Now that's more like it. Now that's where, now we should expect a fish there. It's pretty close to that feeding fish. He might come up to that. Let him see you. Here he comes. Another rainbow. They don't like that shallow water. Look at him go. Wow. What beauties. Okay, he's coming in again. Now I don't want him to get too near that weed, so I'll put a bit of side strain on him here. Now he's coming to shallow. Will he see me? I bet he will. And he looks like he's hooked right in the scissors, which is just perfect. Fine by me. Chuck the net in. Right, net in position. Keep low. That's more like it. He's coming out to the top a lot quicker than the other fish, so he's tiring. But never make the mistake of thinking that he's tired. He could just scoot off at any second, and tear off he will. If he sees me, as soon as he gets that shallow water. There he goes. Doesn't like that shallow water. Come on, in you come. Keeping that rod high. Now, he's going towards some weed there, so we need to slowly turn him back to the centre. Nice flat rod, very steady pull when you've got this side strain. Don't force the fish. See how easy he comes? Just like a dog on a lead. That's it, turned him. He's exactly where I want it. Now right in front of me. And if he goes to the right of the net, I turn him left, bring him back towards the net. And if he tries going left of the net, you bring him to the right. Now so his head's coming up a bit now, so he's tiring out. Now he's going right again. He's certainly trying hard, this fish, but I think he must have exhausted himself with those two beautiful runs. He absolutely tore across the lake just now. And obviously that's going to play on the fish. So he's not, hopefully, got the strength for any more big runs. There he's going after the left, so we turn him gently to the right. As before, do not bring that fish in too near. The great temptation is to wind that line in. I know I said that earlier, but it's such an important tip for beginners to not wind in more. See, I've got at least 1.5 foot of fly line outside the rod and the whole leader. Here he comes. Don't let him see the net, keep the net still, and here we go. Oh, that's a better fish. That's another fish just like the other one. Okay, we had a look at lures and nymphs and dries and various other patterns earlier on. One type of lure which I haven't yet talked about or shown you is a thing called a booby. And this is a booby. In fact, these are all boobies here. And boobies are very distinctive because they've got little polystyrene beads for eyes on 2 of them, one either side of its eye. And the idea about a booby, it's a totally different fishing technique to what we've been doing with this lure. And I'll show you how to fish the booby now. Again, it's not something which I particularly enjoy doing, but it does catch fish. And that's, of course, what you've got to be able to do. In some hard fishing days, you've got to catch fish. So we'll take our woolly worm off. And I'll just tie on this booby here. Big, bright polystyrene eyes. And the way this booby fishes is to fish it on the sinking line on a very short leader. And I'll cut the leader back to about 1 foot long, no more than that. And then what happens is the sinking line will sink to the bottom and the foot leader will hold up like that, and the booby will be held off the bottom, about 1 foot from the bottom. So I'm guaranteeing that my fly fishes 1 foot from the bottom. If I wanted 3 foot from the bottom, I would then cut the leader to 3 foot, not 1 foot. Now, as before, when you dispose of monofil, wrap it around your fingers into little tight loops, and then just cut it into short, 2 short bits like that. And you must cut your monofil. Never ever throw monofil down on the ground. It absolutely destroys wildlife. So I've got a 1 foot leader on. We'll put on the booby. And remember what I was saying just now about the booby. The sinking line will sink to the bottom given sort of 20 seconds, something like that. And the booby will hold itself just up off the bottom, wafting in the current about that far. There's the fly line on my knee, and there's the booby up by my nose. So that's the kind of depth the booby will be fishing. Now, a lot of fisheries, and this fishery in particular, do say no static fly fishing. And the booby originated as a technique for fishing static flies, but you're not allowed to fish static flies, so do check on the rules whether you can fish a static fly or not. And if you can't, yet you still want to fish the booby, you cast the fly out, let it sink to the bottom, wait till the booby's at the depth you want, and then what happens when you pull the booby, it dives down, and then the polystyrene head makes it float back up again. So you get this kind of movement through the water, and that's very, very irresistible to trout. So we'll give it a go, and I'll take it into that deep corner over there, and let's see how the booby performs. Okay, let's try this booby. The booby, as I mentioned, for deep water, fishing deep, getting the fly right down, and particularly useful when the fish are deep in really adverse conditions. But do remember that whilst the line will sink fairly quickly, the booby will hold itself up until the line has gone down, in this case about 1 foot, seeing I've got a foot leader on. So we cast the booby out, and again the line's been floating for a second, so I just give it a twitch, and that gets the fly line to sink, and the booby starts to sink now, and I guess the water's out there is perhaps 6 or 7 foot, and I can just see, even with my Polaroids, I can see the fluorescent green of the booby's head starting to drop down, and perhaps this line would sink 6 foot in about 30 seconds. So you wait for a good 30 seconds. In fact, there's a fish just boiled at it. And, you can't see that normally when the fly is deep. And then once the line's sunk, remember you're not allowed static flies, so a reverse sink and draw, pull, wait. Watch your rod tip. Pull, wait. And when you pull, this time, instead of the fly lifting to the surface, the fly dives to the bottom. And when you stop pulling, the fly lifts up again. Up, there you are, and that's how effective it is. Straight away. Saw the rod tip, slight twitch on the rod, and absolutely straight into boobies. And again, you don't, ooh, he thinks he's a sea trout, this one, airborne. Let's see if he'll come up again. Once again, you don't need boobies in conditions like this. I'm just trying to give you a good overall impression of various fishing tactics and techniques. so that on some days when the fish, fishing's not that easy, you can try something like the Booby, and as you can see, it works very well indeed. Oh, this one's well gone. He's a real fighter, this chap. That's more like it. This is the fun part of fishing. I think the fight is everything. It's the skill of just being able to control that fish, turning them away from weed beds. In this case, there aren't any out there. It's just deep water. Let's just turn him around so we can get him into the picture. Oh, that's it. Here he comes. Another rainbow. Now, is he going to launch himself off this time or not? Let's have a look. He's thinking about it. No, he's not going to launch himself this time. Let's turn him back again. Bring his head up. And we'll bring him straight into the net. Oh, look at that, he's trying to go. That's it, keep his head up. As long as his head's up, you're in no trouble. And straight in. Chalk one up for the Booby. Another success on the Booby nymph.
To get more distance, what you have to do is bend this spring a little bit more. Step one, we can push a bit harder with the rod hand. If you push that little bit harder, the rod will flex more, the line will travel faster in the air, and you'll cast that little bit further. But be careful. If you push too hard with the rod hand, what you'll find is that the loop will close up in front of you. Now, if you watch the loop in the air, it is like an elongated U shape, which is perfect because the fly is traveling above the belly of the line. It'll turn over and there won't be a problem. However, if you push that bit too much with this rod hand, what will happen? That loop will close up. It becomes a circle. If you watch that again, there's your U shape. This time, push too hard, there's that circle. The problem with that is the fly is underneath the line. If the fly is underneath the line, it has to climb over the line to get out on the water. The problem with that is that it might hook into your line. That's great. Why? Because if it hooks into your line, you know about it because the fly will be there. If it travels all the way down, it might hook into your braided loop. That's great as well because you also know about it. However, if it transfers into this leader, what it will do, it'll make a knot. It's called an excessive power knot, but more commonly anglers call it wind knots. Now this is 8-pound fluorocarbon. You'll see it's very, very strong, but as soon as you introduce a knot into it, what happens? This 8-pound fluorocarbon becomes the same strength as probably 4-pound, and you will see I've put a knot in there now. Just wrap it around my fingers and it'll snap very, very easily. The problem with that is you don't know about that knot. That is out there, there's a fly on it, you're pulling it back in, the fish takes you, you lift off, you lose the fish, you lose the fly, and you think, oh, lost it. Well, what happens when you pull it back? There'll be a little kink at the end of the fluorocarbon. That's the telltale sign that there was a knot. So how can we actually get more bend in this rod to cast further? Simple and easy. At the moment, this left hand, that's all it's been doing is retrieving the line when you're fishing. Now we're going to introduce the left hand into the cast. As the rod is actually loading on the back cast, with the left hand you're actually going to pull down. What that does, it pulls more bend in the rod. That makes the line travel faster in the air behind you. What that does, because the line is traveling faster that way, it actually puts a bit more bend in this spring before you start pushing. If you have more bend in this spring, then you push, obviously there'll be more bend, there'll be more line speed, and you're going to cast those few extra yards. There are a couple of problems though. I see some people, when they draw their left hand down there, the problem is this left hand seems a little bit lonely down here and it wants to come and meet its partner up here. And instead of staying down there, when they're coming forward, they bring their hands together. When you do that, that amount of line from this hand, from my left hand to my right hand, is allowed to slide through that spring. At that point, the tension is lost. Everything catches up there and then it lands in a horrible mess in front of you. So remember, with the left hand, when you pull down, you must stay down, push forward and let go from down there. The other one some anglers do is this. They're very scared that the line's not going to run through this bottom ring, and they try to help it. What they do is this. On the back cast, they pull down, they stay down. When they come forward, they try and push the line through the rings. Don't do that. Have the confidence. The line is designed to shoot. It will take itself out. So pull down, stay down, push forward and let go. Do that once again. Left hand, they both start lifting together. Pull down, stay down, push forward and let go. And that will add 2 to 3, even 5 yards to your cast. So we can cast further. Now let's put it on practice and get on the water. As you're fishing the lure back in, just change the speed all the time. But the most important thing, you must give the fish every opportunity to actually take the fly. Unfortunately, a lot of anglers, what they'll do is when they've got the rod length of line out in front of them, they'll actually start lifting them up here into the roll cast position. The problem is, at this point, if a fish was to take that fly, you'd have to actually lift like that. When you lift like that, what happens is you pull the fly out of the water. So what I'm going to do, cast this out again, same retrieve, just keep varying it all the time. Let the fly sink first of all. What I'm doing when I'm watching the fly sink, I'm just watching the leader, the fluorocarbon leader, cutting through the surface tension. When all that cuts, I'll start retrieving, and then it can be a slow figure of 8, it can be short, sharp pulls, it can be stop. When you stop, watch the end of the line. If that does anything untoward, then you have to lift into it. Now the important part, when you're starting to come closer into the bank, start to rotate your body. At this point, what you're doing is you're bringing the rod sideways onto you. What that will do is bring the fly closer. And once you've got the rod length of line out, don't think about recasting. What we do is we actually bring in the rod further up. And this platform is fantastic to do it because I can always go as far up as the bank. At this point now, if a fish was to take that fly, I can actually pull sideways. That means it'll set the hook in the fish's mouth. If it doesn't, the fly's still in the water. It gives it a last chance. Even when it's coming opposite me there, that fish could be concentrating on that fly. It could take directly on my feet. Once you've seen the fly, you can't see a fish following it. Roll it back out, lift off, and then recast. We've started on the left here, we've still got a bit of weed out. What I'm doing, using the countdown method, counting at 10 seconds before I start retrieving. That fly is starting to sink, it's gone all the way down, then just slowly and slowly bringing it back. Every once in a while, giving that faster tweak to rotate that fly a little bit faster. Here we go, yes. As I said, I saw a few natural damselflies coming off, and it proves to be the right choice of fly. When you're fighting the fish, you be in control of it at all times. Keep that rod 45 degrees. There, you direct him where you want him. Now with this net, I've actually got a long-handled net. The worst time when you're netting a fish is when it comes close to the jetty. It sees either my face or it sees the jetty and it thinks, oh, I'm gonna get caught. And he makes a last bid for freedom. That's when most fish are actually caught. With an extra long handle net, just put my foot on it to extend it. What that does, it can net the fish further out, further away, so it doesn't feel as much under threat. So get down. Now once you've got that fish to the surface, try and turn his head. Ooh, this one's got a bit of fight in him. Come on. He's trying to push down into the weeds. Here we go, there's his head on the surface. Keep it up and just skate it into the net. A beautiful rainbow. Oh, this is a bigger one. And there we go, a beautiful fully finned rainbow of just over £2. And as you can see in its mouth, right in the scissors, there's that hotspot damsel. He wasn't going to get away. Unfortunately, we've been beaten by good old Father Time. I've had a great day, got a few fish for supper. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learnt a few new methods as well. Next time you go fishing, you may be able to catch a few more fish. I'll see you again. Tight lines.